woodcut can be a useful tool, a useful technique to make contemporary statements.
Hello, print friends, and welcome to a special broadcasting of Pine Copper Lime, the internet's #1 printmaking podcast, in collaboration with Print Austin and our friends over at Studio Noize podcast. I'm your host, Miranda Metcalf. I release weekly podcasts with people in the print world who are doing something a bit beyond the expected. So please subscribe on your podcast listening app of choice. You can also find Pine Copper Lime on Instagram and Facebook, and you can sign up for our monthly newsletter with print news from around the world, all at pinecopperlime.com. Printmaking forever, shun the non-believers. This episode of Pine Copper Lime is brought to you by Print Austin, an artist-led nonprofit working with local venues and artists to showcase traditional and contemporary approaches in printmaking. Their annual festival will take place the 15th of January through the 15th of February 2021 and offers both safe in-person printmaking-focused experiences and virtual programming. You can find more information at printaustin.org. Also, Print Austin's highly anticipated print fair, PrintEXPO, is reimagined as a virtual experience this year that includes a one-day conference on February 6th. Along with this, they're also offering an exhibition where artists will have the ability to showcase and sell their latest prints online. Visit printexpo.org to learn more. There's a link in the show notes. This episode of Pine Copper Lime is also brought to you by Speedball Art Products, who've been offering a diverse range of high-quality products to your practice since 1997. We here at PCL have been very grateful to partner with them to help keep bringing you weekly printmaking content from around the world. But they do not stop there with support. No. Among all their projects, programs, and printy goodness they help enable, they're also helping to bring you this year's Print Austin Contemporary Print 5x5 exhibition. So head on over to speedballart.com, check out their line of products, and find out how Speedball can help support your printmaking. There's a link in the show notes. Print friends, I have some great news for you. We are happy to announce that this year, the West Coast Print Fair will be hosting an online exhibition of contemporary and historical print work from workshops and galleries such as Crow's Shadow Institute for the Arts, the Maloney Printing Company, my alma mater of Davidson Galleries, and many more. This means you do not need to travel to see a wealth of incredible prints for sale. You can do it from the comfort of your home or studio, including a selection of amazing works for under $500. The event is up now through the 8th of February, so be sure to check out that link in the show notes or simply go to westcoastprintfair.com. There you will find the entire roster of printers, find new work to inspire you, and support the art of printmaking by bringing home your new favorite print. My guest this week is Oliver Pilic, one of the finalists of Print Austin's exhibition, The Contemporary Print 5x5. Juried by our friend and guest of episode 43, Delita Martin. Oliver is a Slovenian printmaker working across a range of old and new technologies. We'll talk about the Slovenian print tradition, how he turned to woodcut after a 10-year hiatus, the faceApp that makes you old, and just how far it can go, as well as what identity means once a face is no longer recognizable. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and prepare to find faces and light sockets with Oliver Pilic. Hi, Oliver. How's it going?
Hi, Miranda. It's going very well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me from a snowy Slovenian afternoon to a hot and sticky Bangkok evening.
Right. Thanks for having me again. I'm looking forward for this interview.
Yeah, me too. So, would you mind just kind of introducing yourself a little bit to the people who are listening and just saying who you are and where you are in the world and what it is that you do?
Right. My name is Oliver Pilic. I'm from Slovenia. I work in as a freelance artist mostly in the field of printmaking, but also drawing ready-made object and photography. I live in a small town called Kamnik, it's a small town, I think like 18,000 residents, and it's on the northern part of the country. Um, it's called Kamnik, which would translate as Stoneville or Stone Town. It's 800 years old, almost there, where I also have my studio there, and so forth. So I try to work um, as much as I can there. So.
And so, despite that, you're not a lithographer. You
No,
do, despite living in Stone Town, but you are a printmaker, as you said, and so could you just tell us the story of what it was like growing up in Slovenia and how you came to art and to printmaking?
well, I was always drawing, I guess, since I was a kid. So there was no question where to go after my primary school, which we finished at the age of 14. Um, and then we have like two chances, art high schools, let's say like that. Um, so my selection was high school of paper and printmaking, where I was introduced to the let's say all the techniques there and so on, to the drawings and so on.
So I actually associate Slovenia as being really wonderful for printmaking, and having a really strong tradition and extremely technically beautiful prints coming out of there. And so it sounds like you were able to go into a printmaking program at 14. Is that what you were saying?
But I didn't know it about that time, but there was a printmaking courses in the high school which I liked.
Gotcha.
Um, but it's true; it's a very strong tradition. I think we have one of the oldest, if not the oldest, biennial in the world,
Oh,
um,
really?
which began in 1955. Yes,
Oh, is it, what's the name of it?
International Printmaking Biennial Ljubljana, which is the capital of Slovenia,
Yes, yes.
um, from 1955, and I think they put us that fact in 55. They put us on the map internationally with all the superstars of the time on the first exhibition already, Rauschenberg and so on. So it was great for, let's say, to start a strong tradition. let's say, let's put it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you started sort of taking your printmaking courses, and then where did that lead you? Like, did you end up going to university for it, or like starting your own studio, or where did it take you?
Well, I did printmaking maybe for about only a year after the high school, and then I lost interest for some reason, and started to paint. And I was painting maybe 10 years without any, almost without any printmaking. I was only doing occasionally lino cuts, and that was it. So I was a little bit of printmaking in high school, 10 years of painting, and then I discovered and quotations printmaking again, but as a form in the woodcut, which I'm still doing right now. So
Gotcha. So what sort of brought you back to it then?
I can't even remember where I discovered. I think through searching, as I always do, to find my inspiration is through art,
Mm.
or to look at a lot of art from history. That means from prehistoric times and all the contemporary art that's happening right now. So I was fascinated, I guess, by the fact that woodcut is still so strong in the field of contemporary art, which I still find amazing because nobody wants to do it in a way. It's so conceptually structured. like all the contemporary art is anything but woodcut printmaking. So that was I guess the strongest reason I started to search through that and develop and actually try to find my own technique how to realize ideas in the form of woodcut. I say later.
And because, yeah, you do have like a particular technique that you use to create your woodcuts. Would you mind describing that for us?
Well, the first thing is I try to approach it in a conceptual way. So it means I definitely try to avoid this, like they did it in the earliest 20th century, maybe in the German expressionism and so on. I definitely didn't want that. I wanted just to combine like the fact that it's the oldest reproductional process in the world and combine it with the latest reproduction processes which is the screen or the video.
Mm-hmm.
And just to combine those two seemed like a good idea to like see a woodcut in a new way. So the way I did it is through raster, or how do you call it, like linear lines that I shape, and I avoid gesture first in this way, and also in the end the effect is photographic, which also goes with the concept because it's in a way it's such a slow process like making woodcuts, but then the final effect is photographic, which is like a split of a second. So it's a long process and also a photographic effect.
Yeah. And then, so in terms of how you actually develop your block, are you like line bit mapping on the computer kind of to set it up? Or
Yeah,
yeah. How do you go about doing that?
I always make the final image of everything on computer.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact is that I use applications like faceApp, Photoshop, computers, videos, and so on. And I do everything by computer, and then I print the image in a laser print, and then I trace it on the wood block. And this is the second part of the process, which is all hand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I carve wood block by hand. I I also print by hand with Baron. Um,
Mm.
so it's a gap between image making on a computer and making it on the wood. On one hand, everything is computer made. On the other hand, everything is handmade. So I try to make this as wide as possible in terms of process. I'm saying
Yeah, absolutely. And so, do you say you've been doing that for about 10 years?
about 8 years, I think.
Okay.
But I only do woodcut. I don't do any other techniques than woodcut because it's as I mentioned before, it's only the fact that it's the oldest technique. Um, I complement in the processes or ideas which other techniques wouldn't be useful, maybe.
So, in the course of doing it for 8 years, the technology side must have evolved because it moves so quickly now. I mean, the woodcut side is going along, of course, as that first, oldest, truest reproduction technique. But how have
Right.
you found your process evolve sort of as technology's evolved?
I don't think there's any difference
Yeah?
in, in terms of woodcut, no, but in terms of new applications that I use, I didn't use like 8 years ago, yes,
Yeah.
because I use right now I'm doing a series of self portraits using faceApp. The feature that makes you look old,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
used and I used it like 8 or 9 times. So it means I used the app in the photograph once, it appears old, and then I use the old one and make it old again and again and
Oh,
again and again
wild.
until the applications says the face could not be recognized anymore. So then I stopped, and then I'm making this series of 9 portraits of me growing up in a way.
Yeah, yeah. So does it eventually, because I know that the faceApp that you're talking about, and it's works incredibly well. I mean, the way I've
Yes,
just run my face through it once, and it is hardly discernible as having been altered. You just look like you're looking at an older version of yourself. Interestingly enough, when I do it, I look exactly like Hillary Rodham Clinton. Um, like, it's shocking.
oh my.
So now I know, what I have to look forward to. But yeah, it's when you run it through over and over again, does the actual image kind of start to degrade? Does it become more kind of cartoony, or does it hold that realism the more you use it?
The image of the face, it gets wrinkled in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another detail. I just wanted to make as many images as possible, but it wouldn't let me.
Mm.
The app stopped at some point, and I was wondering why. Maybe I should use a younger me photo
Mm.
and then extend the process, and I would get like 15 maybe. But it's not. I think the app works in a way that the most important features of the face are eyes
Mm.
and the mouth.
Mm.
So the more you open your eyes and your mouth, the longer the process of repeating, making yourself older, it gets. So,
Okay, so if you go at it with wide eyes and wide mouth, you can run it through more times
yes,
because it must sort of recognize them longer. Then that makes sense.
but the last image is absurd. It's grotesque.
I bet.
It's like it's it's interesting because it's almost no identity, which is also something I'm interested in. What is identity in someone's face if is the if the face can not be recognized? So when it's going to be printed, I think in two color woodcut, I guess with like we're going to have a nice effect in the
Mm.
end,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not going to look like woodcut until only if you get very close to the print. Maybe you're going to see it's a print. So.
Right, right. Yeah, so because from far away it will look like some sort of a photographic
Yeah, and it's
reproduction.
really well done. I do like I spent a lot of time doing the extra matrix.
Yeah. That's a really interesting question, what you were saying about, what is identity if a face isn't recognizable? Yeah, it's definitely a question of how we are so programmed to recognize people by face. That's just like we see somebody's face, and it's why we see faces in light sockets and clouds and cars, is because our brains are just hardwired to be so face centric and so interested in faces.
Yeah, it's called Century of the Self now.
Yeah. Century of the self, you said?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean the age of selfies and so on. So
Absolutely. Oh yeah, yeah. The 21st century has been, yeah, the selfie age. But yeah, the way that and when you think of someone, if you're asked to picture someone in your life, of course, you're going to picture their face. For some people, I mean, it's one of the most famous living portrait artists, and you may know this already, but I just think it's a really interesting fact is of Chuck Close, is
I
that
was going to mention him. Yeah,
his face blindness.
he cannot recognize faces, but he's doing that.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Isn't it great? Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's something that we see as incredibly recognizable. Particularly when it's a portrait of a famous person,
Yeah.
and we're just like, oh yeah, that's so and so. It doesn't actually mean anything to him. I heard an interview with him once where he was saying that in his apartment complex he recognizes his neighbors by their dogs. come into the elevator with him, he can be like, oh, okay, that's the Pomeranian, that's the guy down the hall, that kind of thing. Yeah.
It's insane. And he once, I think, said this, he cannot remember the face. And like from a person that was, they were together on a dinner, like the night before. And then he met them on the street and he cannot recognize them. And a lot of them were thinking he was kind of a rude guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think probably before it kind of, came out and was more widely known that this can happen to people and that, it belongs to him. You can imagine really easily taking offense to someone that you were just sitting across from for dinner the next day, snubbing you on the street. But yeah, it's a fascinating idea, the way we wed identity and face, and also, as faces change, because when they change slowly over time, we can kind of deal with it. But sudden change in faces, it can be really sort of disruptive. Yeah, for people and with identity as well.
The thing is, I think that also most of the people, or most of us, wants to look young or beautiful and so on. Nobody wants to grow old, and so on. So I'm actually trying to do that also, to expose the things you don't want to confront, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like not so beautiful ones.
I've always tried to think about getting old as a privilege. Whenever I see signs of age, I just try and look at it and think I'm really lucky, because not everyone gets to experience this, and I think it might have been my grandmother who had who lived until her 80s, who was just like, well, getting old isn't fun, but it beats the alternative,
Right.
Yeah, but it is a big question. About like 8 years ago now, maybe more, I think maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I got a really bad case of Bell's palsy, that's where half your face gets paralyzed. And I couldn't move it for 6 months. It's just it's not that unusual. But it's an inflammation of a nerve in the face that is caused by the herpes virus. So it's if you've ever had chicken pox, or if you've ever had shingles, you can get Bell's palsy. It's the same virus.
Oh my God.
So it attacks the nerves just like chicken pox does. And so for 6 months I couldn't move my face, half of it anyway. And
it was shocking.
It comes on in the course of just a few hours, really. It comes on really suddenly, and it's terrifying if you don't know about it, because of course you think you're having a stroke, you think you're something really quite serious is wrong, and well, it's not comfortable. It's not life-threatening in any way. It doesn't threaten your health in any way, but it threatens your mental health a bit, as you can imagine. And I remember sort of trying to use it as this opportunity to say, look, I'm not going to be in charge of how my face changes as I get older, if I'm lucky enough to get older. This is a chance to let go of that, to kind of be like, well, my face is going to do what it's going to do, and I don't get to have a say in it, and I haven't done anything wrong, and I just have to live with it as it is, And it was accept it. It was really interesting. And so trying to see that again as an opportunity to learn a little bit about the process of aging. Yeah. But it is that inevitable process, isn't it?
It's unavoidable.
Yeah, it is. And so before you were working with the faceApp and that sort of thing, you've been doing faces before as well, and working with faces. Yes. Did you always use portraiture as your subject for your woodcuts?
Not always, but most of the woodcuts are faces. For instance, my first series, I think, was morphing two faces together. Mm-hmm. So I was doing that on the Photoshop using, if you know, maybe Maurizio Cotelan, the artist Italian, and his work, Him, which is a wax sculpture of Hitler. Okay. So he used this photograph of his hyper-realistic sculpture of Hitler and also a photograph of Donald Trump, and I combined them, and I got the third person, and I was repeating that like endlessly and making woodcuts out of that. It's kind of interesting series, having 10 or 15 third person guy. Let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that like to spend that much time with the faces of two evil men, like staring back at you, but combined into one?
Well, here's the interesting thing: is the face is somehow on one way more Hitler or more Trump, but in some cases is like totally different person where you can't recognize either of those, which is also kind of fascinating that a third person appears, kind of again with no identity. Who is that?
Right. You know, I've seen the series that you're talking about, and you're right. It is really interesting how sometimes when you see it, you know, these like because these are two iconic sort of triggering faces in our world, so you know them really well. Like people really know these two faces, and when you look at them, some of them you think it's just an odd image of Hitler. Some of them you think it's just an odd image of Trump. And then some of them, it really does look like a third person. And then that baggage and that history and that legacy that you bring to that image is just gone when it's no longer recognizable as either. Yeah, that's really interesting.
The reason I chose a sculpture instead of photograph of Hitler was to look even more odd, and in a way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would think that, you know, at least with images of Hitler, there's a finite amount of them, right? And a lot of them are already, I think, in the public consciousness in a way.
In the public subconsciousness, maybe even.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, we know what we've seen in the history textbooks and documentaries on the History Channel.
Yeah.
And so there's this canon of images. And if you were to pull from one of those, I think it would maybe tip the hand a little bit because it's already kind of this icon, whereas using a separate sort of object, a sculpture.
It's true.
Yeah, you're almost evening the playing field for a contemporary figure that we have almost an unlimited amount of images of. Who knows how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of images of Trump there are in the world.
Too many.
Yeah, too many.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but it was a kind of interesting for me to put him in a context which he does not want to be, I think, maybe. And I just chose him and his way of thinking and acting, not only in the States, but globally, as a perverse kind of thinking. So it was some honest reaction. My reaction was an honest reaction. And also, maybe if you know, we have the first lady, his wife is Slovenian.
Yes, I did know that actually.
The most famous Slovenian is Melania Trump.
How's that feel?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that in their own way, people have more sympathy for her than they do for him. To be honest, at least speaking as an American.
Yeah.
I think we have this kind of sense that's like, look, she just wanted to be a model, wanted to marry a millionaire. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And then she's like, what the fuck? I have to be first lady now? You know, like, this wasn't part of the deal. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
But
so
insane that happens to you. I mean,
totally. So I think that, you know, well, it's very difficult to make any sort of moral judgments on someone you know nothing about. In this case, I think we almost feel a bit of a kindred spirit and just kind of being dragged along for the ride, like, of this insane person.
So,
yeah, absolutely. And, you know, just her seemingly taking absolutely zero interest in all the stupid things that the poor first lady is asked to do. Like, he's like just decorating the White House for Christmas in these insane ways, that kind of thing.
It's a big job.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
heard that she does not want to speak Slovenian. That was the maybe in the papers here, but I heard it's a fact that
Really?
no ties with the language, so to speak.
Wow. So Baron's not learning Slovenian alongside English then, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think she cares. And
So speaking, I guess, of just, yeah, kind of Slovenian life and culture, and one of the things that comes up when I interview people around the world is that this idea that printmaking is in a way this almost sort of unsung hero, you know, so they do this art form and they dedicate themselves to it and they meet great people through it, and then they'll go out into the world and they'll talk to a barista at a cafe or a taxi driver or a professor of English.
yeah,
And they'll be like, wait, what do? Do you make photocopies? Like, they don't understand what printmaking is. Is it that way in Slovenia, or because you have this history and this biennial, do you find that people generally understand when you say you're a woodcut artist?
generally they do understand I'm a woodcut artist, absolutely. But here's the thing: it's interesting among some of my friends, artists and curators and so on, or the people I meet from abroad. They come to Ljubljana, and of course the first question is, what do you do? I mean, in what kind of field you're interested in? Mostly it's like my friends are saying, I'm into conceptual art, I developed this and this and that. And they're kind of shocked when I say that I'm in printmaking. Like, in a way, is that even a form of contemporary art or whatever,
Right.
right? But then as conversation evolves, we get to know that woodcut can be a useful tool, a useful technique to make contemporary statements. I think, at least, it's the fact that it's here, and also the fact that a lot of contemporary artists, even famous ones, are making woodcuts and so forth. So, but I always have this sort of a little bit of like stepping back problem from my friends. Like, why are you doing that? Why don't you choose some form of performance art or something
Yeah,
like
some
that,
kind of
which is
conceptual
contemporary?
art. Right, right.
It's always fight between contemporary or not contemporary.
Right. I think that people will confuse the words contemporary and conceptual as synonyms when
Yes.
they really mean quite different things. And, you know, to paint with a very broad brushstroke about the art world, having been in it and in three continents in a serious way, is that, you know, Europe tends to be just really particularly interested in conceptual art, more so than I found in
Right.
Australia or
Yeah.
Asia. It's interesting, yeah. So I'm not super surprised to hear that that's the reaction that you get there, because it's the kind of, I think that the really close relationship between academia and art making in Europe just seems to push it more in the conceptual direction. Whereas in Thailand, you feel, well, of course, there are art universities and art writing and art criticism. It feels like it's more wed to craftsmanship.
More traditional.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that people think that if something is sort of craft based, that it can't therefore be conceptual as well, which is interesting. Yeah.
Which is insane in a way, because I think in the end of the day, the technique or it's not really necessary. It's the context, I think, and the idea which you would like to express, and not I don't know whether it's site specific installation art or photography or performance art and so on, painting, sculpture. It have to be meaningful is the first thing, I think, not the technique. So which a lot of people don't realize. I think they don't. They just think this the latest technology makes art contemporary, which can be true, of course not.
Well, I guess speaking of technology and the contemporary art world, so we got
Mhm.
connected because you were selected for an exhibition that's taking place in the COVID world through Print Austin.
Yes,
And I'm wondering if you could just sort of speak to that exhibition a little bit and how you found out about it and what form it's going to take and all of that.
I go through a lot of open calls. I just googled it, and the one I found interesting, I just apply. So I was kind of surprised when I got the email from Print Austin. I was selected for the Delita Martin, which I knew before. I
Yeah.
was like, besides that, I was selected for a solo show next year in March
Oh, wonderful.
in Ljubljana, and some other things. So in that aspect, I was is like great year for me,
Yeah.
um, having many shows already scheduled up for the next year. Yeah, the only problem is some of the shows this year were cancelled or were put online because of the COVID.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted to. I don't know how it is in Thailand or in the States, but they wanted to just to avoid stuff that nobody will see the show because of that. So they did not open galleries and so on, and just put everything online. So that was at least 3 or 4 exhibitions of mine, group exhibitions that happened.
Yeah. Well, it's like what we were talking about a little bit before we started recording is that double-edged sword of the COVID art world where people
Yeah,
are going to be taking so much more effort to create digital content, which will in turn reach more people. But there's nothing quite like knowing that your work's going to be seen in person either.
I mean, a lot more people are going to see my work now
Mm.
because the exhibition in Austin is going to be online. I don't know even if me and you will be doing this. We will be doing this um, if it not would been for COVID.
Yeah, that's wild. But yeah, you're totally right.
If you do podcast episodes, if the show is in physical in Austin, I don't know how it works w- with this organization between you and them. I mean,
I would guess that I think that the organizers reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in interviewing some of the people selected because they were
is this the first time? Sorry.
yeah, this is the first time we've
Oh,
done
okay.
it. I've done the
Okay.
interview. Like Print Austin's been
Oh,
around for quite some time and they always do a great job with their event. But the reaching out to it's me and it's another wonderful podcast called Studio Noize, which is based in Atlanta in Georgia, run by Jamal Barber, who's a beautiful woodcut artist. So we're both talking to some people from the exhibition, and Print Austin reached out because they were like, look, we want the digital content to be more robust than just
right. Yeah.
just go to the exhibition page and click detail view if you want to see more. Like they're trying to think
Yeah.
about ways to make it more interesting and more dynamic. And so, yeah, that's why we were given the opportunity to get involved. And yeah, you're
It's a great
right.
way to do it. Great.
Yeah, that hopefully it will open the door for more accessibility and more international outreach, even in our touchwood, hopefully post-COVID world. Yeah. Which piece of yours did Delita select?
I chose one piece for each year. So it's one from 15, 16, 17, from 1918, and from, I think, one from this year. I don't know if you saw, but I made a couple of pieces directly connected to COVID,
Mm.
or inspired because of the COVID. The toilet paper. Have you seen that one?
No, I don't think I have.
Which is a ready-made object, actually. One second. Yeah, a real toilet paper. I was making a reference to Gerhard Richters toilet papers, his paintings from 1965. uh,
Okay.
a couple of years ago, and I always wanted to print the smaller version of a woodcut on the actual toilet paper tissue
Gotcha.
on each paper. So I ended up making 140 on one roll,
Oh my gosh.
and it was actually in Slovenia was in March the first lockdown was insane. I think in Japan also, but in France, I don't know how was it in Thailand. But for some reason, people were going crazy after toilet papers.
They
Like
were.
they're gonna run out of in stores, and they were like buying like this only paper, only toilet papers. So so I made something which is totally invaluable, like a couple of cents.
Yeah.
I made the piece which is very valuable, let's say.
It wasn't so much in Thailand. We're really fortunate that Thailand has a really strong sense of unity and kind of civic duty. And
Okay.
so this sense that you would go out and buy more toilet paper than you needed just so you could have it in case you don't have it, that doesn't really happen here. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
oh no, we're all in this together. I shouldn't buy more than I need because then maybe my neighbor won't. Like there's a really strong sense of unity, but I know that in the States people were getting in fist fights over it.
Yeah, so I made this and I sent it there. And also I made the one older piece that was from 2016, I think, called Texas Queen, which is a pornographic image of an actress from film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a snapshot almost. Like, look, it looks like snapshot that there's a liquid, how you call it, dripping in her mouth, but you don't know what it is. Even is it water or something else?
Oliver, this is a family podcast. No.
I'm sorry.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing. I'm
Okay.
totally
Family
teasing.
podcast. But it was interesting composition of this work, which have been successful. I was. It's in a collection in Belgrade, Serbia, also the same piece and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So try to choose the not the ones that we were talking before, the Trump Hitlers, because how sure I'm not sure how that would work in America.
Oh.
So I changed my mind. I said no, maybe toilet paper, some landscape, and
An adult film star. Yeah.
an adult film star, which you could hardly tell that is pornographic. But how would people react? Maybe if it's a silly question, if I would send 10 Hitler Trumps to the open call.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in America in years now, but I would guess that I would be shocked if you were to find anyone in the arts or arts adjacent who would take offense to the comparison you're making. I mean, it's
Okay, that's fair enough.
yeah. I think you'd be safe, but yeah, it just seems like the divide from I'm definitely at this point, like I said, outside looking in, but it just seems like the divide is so deep there that it's just anyone in the arts, anyone in the city, anyone in the city of Austin, it'd be very unusual to find someone who supported him. And then if you go smaller places or more conservative places, then you find people who support him 100%.
Yeah,
And it's just very,
of
very,
course.
very divided. So, yeah.
Very divided.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to show the pieces in flash one day in the States. Maybe it would
Yeah.
be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. How has COVID been in Slovenia? You said you had your first lockdown in March. Have you gone through more than one?
This is the second lockdown now
Okay.
uh, from the beginning of October, I think.
Oh, wow.
And,
That's some time now.
and it's terrible. It's I don't know what to say. It's even if you leave out the art world galleries, museums, and so on, and just everyday life. It's we have the police hour here, which I mean, it's crazy. You cannot be outside from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m.
And it's patrolled by police.
Yeah, masks all the time outside also, except even if you're in the middle of a field yourself, you don't have to wear it. So it's really difficult in a way. Yeah. No socializing, everything is closed. This New Year is going to be awful one because by the government said you have to no more than 6 people in apartment during the holidays and New Year and so on. So it's awful, really. Yeah.
And it's, going on since October. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we could get a chance to connect and talk across the distance, and hopefully provided some relief from the monotony of lockdown. I know, having gone through a couple myself, that's what gets to you. It's like the socializing on the screen is, pretty much how everyone does it these days. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for having me, and I hope it was okay.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
You will get some, at least something out of it, because I know I listened to the last podcast, I think, of yours with a woman, who was very honest, and it's great to listen when someone's fluent in English and so on. So it's this is going to be a little bit hard, I guess, for your listeners, but that's how it is.
Well, I actually have quite a few guests who speak English as a second or third or fourth language. And I think people really enjoy hearing from different places in the world and different perspectives. And I don't think that it's an issue at all. And I actually hear a lot of good feedback. So it's thank you very much for talking to us about your work and about Slovenia. And please tell people where they can find you and see more of your work and see the images that we were talking about on Instagram.
Absolutely. It's a great tool. I think I will follow you, your pine copper lime or pineapple lime.
Yeah, pineapple lime.
Also, it's a great site, and hopefully we'll hear each other again, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep in touch and let me know how everything goes, and I'm sure we'll do some promotion come the exhibition as well, and we'll talk a bit then, and I'll be in touch about maybe getting an image or two from you. And
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll put a link in the show notes to your Instagram page so people can follow you there. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's our show for this week. Join me again next week when my guest will be Emma Gunning. We'll talk about her chance encounters with monotypes, the urban landscape and our effect on it, and Bristol Prints Atelier. You won't want to miss it. This episode, like all episodes, was written and produced by me, Miranda Metcalf, with editing by Timothy Pauschak and music by Joshua Weber. I'll see you next week.